I want you to check out this really cute card that I have. This is a vegetable garden platform card. It will fit in a 5x7 envelope. So here's the card, and then when it pops up, you see all the beautiful vegetables there, and then it will sit nicely on display. You can see on the front there, there's a little print and cut sentiment, and then on the back, you have a spot, very tiny as it is, but a spot where you can write a personal message. You can also just stick another note card in the envelope with it. But let's go ahead and I'm going to show you how to put this together. Hello, my crafty friends. It's Christy over at Crafty Christy's Creations, and today we're going to put together this beautiful vegetable garden platform card. So stick around and I'll show you how it goes together. So I've got all of the pieces here, and I've got my glue. And I already went ahead and did the paper piecing on the inserts that go here. So I already went ahead and did that. The one thing I want to mention about this, these onion leaves, stems, shoots are pretty thin. So I turned the speed down of the cutting. I turned that down really low. And then on the lettuce here, you can see I cut this in multiple colors, and there's a little bit of a gap in between the different colors and then this base area. So I just wanted to point that out to you, but you'll see here that all of the inserts are numbered. And then for the outside pieces, just like I did with the original one, I went ahead and ran these through a wood grain embossing folder, and then I also used weathered wood distress ink to give it that nice textured multicolored look. And then you've got your little print and cut sentiment for the front, and then the other piece that goes on the back for you to write your message. And then this here is the platform base. There's some score lines on here. We're going to go ahead and just fold down on all of those score lines. And then you'll notice there's only one slit on each of these pieces. So one will be the front and the other one will be the back. And then you have to decide how you want to do that. But when it goes together, this part here will be the top. And then these two sides will glue together, and then this makes up the top of your platform here. And then the second one will just slide in between there. So when you're doing that, you want to make sure that you have the pieces going the correct direction. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put number 2. And number 2 here is just going to fit on this piece here, nice and flat. And then you have like the T section, the cross part of the T will sit just above that. So I'm going to add some glue. And I'm only going to put it on the back area. And you don't need a ton of glue. And then it's going to go on this piece facing me. So I'm just going to fold this top piece down. And then I'm going to add that right here. It's going to stick up just slightly above that folded line. And then you just want to try to center that the best that you can. And then you'll see it goes flush all the way to the bottom there. So that's the number 2. So now that we have that in place, that's going to make this slot here for number 3. So I'm going to take my number 3. You're going to take that, put that in the slot. And then you'll notice there's a score line here at the bottom. And I'm just going to fold this flat. So this piece is going to come up. This piece will come up as well, and it's going to stick to this. So I'm going to fold. I'm going to pull my slit. I'm going to pull it all the way down as far as it'll go. I'm going to turn this over. So the number 3 is facing me so I can read it. I'm going to add some glue around it. And then I'm going to fold this bottom piece up. And that's going to make sure that it is stuck perfectly in the correct spot. So that way when you go to pull this open, it's going to stand up perfectly nice and tall. So I'll show you from the front here. See how that's going to stand up nice and tall now. So now that we have that part done, we can go ahead and attach our next piece here. So again, the slit is going on the top with the opening facing me, and then this piece will glue down to the part that has the number 2. I'm just going to add my glue. And then I'm just going to hold these pieces nice and flush. And you can set them on the table if you need to. Make sure they're flush side to side. And then if you use the table, that'll help make sure that they're nice and flush. And then again, you can lay that flat, give that a nice press. Okay, so we've got our platform mostly put together now. And then all I need to do now is insert number 1. So number 1 is our onion pieces. And you've got, again, this score line at the bottom. I'm going to stick this in the slit here, facing me. And then this time, when you go to lay it flat, you're going to pull this all the way down. And then this one, it'll fold forward. So I'm going to fold this up. And then I'm going to add glue so the number's facing away from me. Oops, and actually that ripped right off. Oh boy. Well, that's not going to work, is it? So let's hope that yours doesn't do that. And then you would fold that up, put your glue on the back side with that folded up. And then what you would take, as you go ahead, and I would take this piece now and flip this to fold up, pull my tab down. My number 1 is facing away from me, keeping that nice and straight. And then I'm going to fold that bottom piece up and glue that into place. Now, clearly I used a bit of an aggressive score for that, a little too aggressive. So then that piece would be stuck on there and it would pull down nicely. I'm going to have to think of a different way to do this now. You know what I can do is I can tape those together. Let me grab a little piece of tape. Okay, I have a little bit of masking tape here. And I will put that masking tape. I'm going to make sure this is all folded nice and flat, the way that it should be. So I'll fold that piece up. And I add my tape right here. And then actually I'm going to pull this down and then tape it to that number there. Let's see if that'll do it. So improvising here a little bit. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. All right, and that's not a big deal because you'll never see that once we get this all closed up. Okay, so now we have our inside pieces put in there, and you just want to make sure that everything's going to fold up nicely, both sides, and it's flat. And then you also want to check that both sides are going to fold down. And again, that everything will fold nice and flat. If things aren't going to fold flat, then that means we need to make some adjustments now before we go ahead and add anything else to it. So when it's all done, ideally you want it to fold flat with this piece pointing down. So now what we need to do is put on our border edge. So you've got these two long pieces, and then they have a score line on one end that has a glue tab. So I'm going to add some glue to this glue tab, and I'm going to turn this into one long piece. So this glue tab to the other end, and then we'll just, especially because I've used that embossing folder, so I am going to have to be a little bit more generous with my glue, and I'm using liquid glue so that it can get into all of those textured crevices to make sure that this is nice and really stuck together. Okay, so now I've got this one really long piece. And you've got the score lines on here as well. So you want to go ahead and just bend on all of those other score lines. So I've got all my score lines. And then you'll notice that there's one section, you have 3 sections on each piece. So that middle section is what's going to attach to your flaps, your little score line glue tabs on each front and on the back. So I'm going to put a little glue on these glue tabs on the front. And then I'm going to line up that middle section right on those glue tabs. So it should be flush at the top and then nice and flush down the sides as well. And I like to start with the front because that's what people are going to see the most, and try to get that nice and squared up. And then that way, if things accidentally don't line up great, at least you know the front of your card is going to look the best. I'm going to give those a nice good press. And then you want to go ahead and test it even with just that one. Make sure that you can open up that card. And I got glue everywhere. Between the glue and the tape. What is happening? Okay, so I've got that peeled up, and now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm putting my fingers on the inside there to just really make sure that those flaps are glued down well. Maybe a little bit more glue right here on this edge. Going to come in there with a little bit more glue. And I'm just going to glue that down really well. So getting this first piece on there, especially because this is going to be the front of the card, is really the most important. So take your time, make sure that that is glued on there nicely, especially if you've done like me and used a texture. You're going to need some more glue, so give it some time to really dry and get everything glued on there nicely. And then you want to line up that top edge and bottom edge should be nice and flush on those score lines. Okay, and then I'm just testing. It's going to fold down. You want to make sure when it folds down, everything folds flat. And then same thing, if you were going to fold it up, you want to make sure it's going to fold up and everything's going to fold flat. Okay, that looks great. So now I'm just going to go ahead and go around the corner and the other corner, and then we're going to do the same thing on the back. You've got these other 2 glue tabs. We're going to add glue to these tabs. And then you want to make sure if the front of the card's facing up, you want this to face up so everything's nice and flat. And then you can come across and just let those fold really nicely on there and get those edges nice and flush. And then same as before, we folded up. Now we want to go ahead and open everything, and we want to make sure it's going to go the other direction, and that's going to fold nicely too. Nice and flat going both directions, which is great. So now just going to keep that open, make sure that that's going to fold around nicely. Everything looks good there. And then we just have to do this last glue tab here. I'm going to apply some glue to this glue tab. I'll go ahead and flatten this out. It's so much easier to work with when it's flat. And then I'm going to fold that tab under. And then we're just going to glue that on there nice and straight and make sure that edge is nice and flush as well. Okay, now we're going to open this up. And we're going to tuck that platform in really nice. So there we go, we're almost done. And then these extra pieces here are just going to be basically what would be the corners. So we're going to put some glue on the back side of these, and they're going to go on every corner. This is just to make your garden box, to give it a nice finished look. You don't have to put these on here, but I think they just add a wonderful finishing touch. So I'm going to leave this box popped open so I can see all the corners. And then, ooh, if I can grab a hold of it, I'm going to put this one right here on this corner, and you'll see that now I've made sure when I did the wood grain, these I did them all going the same direction. So now the wood grain looks like it's going up and down, whereas the rest of it goes side to side. I think that just adds more to that finishing touch. You know, it's all about those fine details that really brings your card home and over the top, giving that wow factor. Okay, and then we're going to do that on all of the corners. So again, these are pretty, they have a lot of texture to them, so I'm going a little heavy-handed with the glue to make sure that they're going to meet on these different textured surfaces to give them enough room to really attach. And then I'm giving them a nice press on there to make sure that they're finding something to attach to. So I built this card because I've been spending a lot of time building my own raised garden beds. And so that's what inspired me to create this card. I also have carrots and onions and lettuce growing in my garden right now. So I thought, let's bring the garden to crafting. And that is how I ended up with this vegetable garden platform box card. And I've been wanting to try one of these platform cards for a while. So this felt like the perfect opportunity. So I'm just going to keep going around. I'm putting that glue on here, giving them a good moment to hold. We got two more. We're almost done. If you decided not to add texture to these with an embossing folder, you could easily add all of this with some tape runner if that is more preferable to you. It sure would be quicker. But again, since I did the texture, I like to use that liquid glue to make sure that there's some spaces for things to tack onto. And then here's the last one. And then the really cool thing is, like, those the embossing envelopes I have are just like 5 inches long, whereas these strips were 6.5. So you can see here, like it didn't get the whole thing, but this corner will almost completely cover that up, which is really, that worked out really well. Okay, the last thing we have to do is add our front and our back piece. I would do your writing on here before you put it on if you were going to write something. And then to do this, I'm going to go ahead and make this flat. So I'm going to just push down. This is the way I'm going to put it in my envelope. And I'm just going to really press on all of those pieces there. And then on this one, I did some foam dots to really make that stand out. This time I'm just going to add some glue. And then you just want to make sure you've just eyeball the center. So this was a little print and cut. So when I did this, I just changed the size of the bottom inset and brought that up. So I did like a 3 foot, not 3 foot, like a 3-inch bottom inset. So it only did a print and cut on a small portion of my page. And then that way, the rest of that page I can use as scraps and cut different things out of them later. And then you've just got the piece to put on the back. And I'm going to do the same thing, just a little bit of liquid glue on here. And then I like to have it so that the points are pointing to the side and then the top and bottom are flush, parallel. But I mean, it's your card, so you can do it however you want. At least for the back. For the front, you have to do it the same way I did, unless you want to rotate all of the words. Okay, so here is your finished vegetable garden platform card. So when you fold it flat to mail, you want all of this part to go down, and then they're just going to push up till everything's flush at the top, and then it'll stand nicely on display.